I learned some new information about MCAS recently, so I thought that I would just pass this on because although it's been on my record since 2020 and I've been really learning about it and initially self-treating and then had interventions from the medical communities, both the NHS and in a lot of cases private healthcare. I actually didn't know this. So I've been pretty much symptomless since I went on the LDN in November. And this reaction only happened because I ate some cookies that were baked for me, but the person hadn't disclosed all the ingredients that they were using, and one of them was one that is actually very bad for MCAS. So initially I didn't realise that I'd had anything that I could be reacting to. So I was aware that in MCAS you can have anaphylaxis without going into anaphylactic shock, but I didn't really understand sort of how that worked. So in MCAS, it's known as sometimes smouldering, which is a layman's term, or protracted anaphylaxis. And it just kind of means that it's not as your mast cells are releasing anaphylactic mediators, and you recognize it by if more than one system of the body is reacting. So in the case of these cookies, I had the digestive issues that I usually have with MCAS. The POTS flared up, so that's autonomic nervous system. But I also had breathing symptoms this time, which is the first time I've had breathing symptoms, so wheezing and coughing. Because of the time of year and because I wasn't feeling that bad at that point, I thought that I was probably just coming down with something. So I probably should have gone and got checked out, although it did resolve, which is quite common in MCAS. So I'll have to see in the new year about whether I need to have an EpiPen now I've had breathing symptoms, because that's the first time. But anyway, what I've discovered, because now it was more of a clear sort of narrative of symptoms of what happened. I was looking into it so that I could recognize it and mitigate the fallout from it. So what I found online, and this fitted with my symptoms, is that once your mast cells have been activated from that moment up until about 3 days, your system is going to be a lot more sensitive, and that means that it makes sense to use any rescue medications. I mean, I'm already on everything really for it, so I don't have any rescue medication, but things like supplements and stuff like that, some people add in. But also to be really careful with known triggers. So I have been expanding a little bit what I can eat on LDN, but it made sense for me to take it right back down to just eating the foods that I know are my very safe foods. And it did resolve after the 3 days, but I am having little mini flares since then. And this is because once your mast cells have started to degranulate, it takes 6 weeks for them to degranulate completely and be replaced with new healthy mast cells. So for the 6 weeks after an exposure, especially if it's a major exposure like that was, there's still cause to be very cautious and very careful with your MCAS, because the way I saw it described is it's kind of like a fire alarm that when you not a smoke detector rather, when you turn your smoke detector off and it still beeps like it's uncertain, like there might still be a fire, there could still be a fire, beep. That's kind of what your mast cells are doing over the next 6 weeks because they've been activated. So I found that I became a lot more symptomatic around the time that I was due on my period, which is always a time that my MCAS flares as well, but it did a lot more this month because I'd had that exposure a week or so previously. So small things that might trigger you will trigger you more in the aftermath of having had an exposure like that. And it actually gave me some insight into some of my relapses that I've had, but I think I'm going to talk about them on a different video. Otherwise, this video will be really long. But But yeah, finding out that term protracted anaphylaxis, that was quite key for me, learning more about um, what was happening to me and also what I can do in the aftermath of an exposure to make sure I get back to where I was as quickly as possible. So I hope that's helpful to someone else.